friend and colleague, Honorable Coretta McDonald, AA, MP, and General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, who is absent because of other engagements. So I tender here an apology for absence. And so tonight we are going to deal with the topic, breaking the rules. And viewers, you would have recognized that over the past month thereabout, there has been this trend of breaking the rules in every area of this country. And so I thought it fit the organizers, so to speak, of this program to be able to allow us to speak on this very important topic, breaking the rules. And so the order of the presentation tonight would be a short introduction. Then we are going to deal briefly with the removal of the vendors from the seawall. We are going to touch on some educational issues. We are going to touch on matters of GRDB. We are going to touch on the visit to Brooklyn by Irfan Ali. We are going to touch on the victory of our teachers. We are going to look at discrimination of the cash grant. We are going to look at regional matters. And then we have a conclusion. So tonight, viewers, as we commence this program, very quickly in the introduction, I want to say that if you look at today's Kaichur news, there is a very important article, not for only Guyanese, but for the entire Caribbean. Excellent reading. And that letter would have been penned by the Guyana Trades Union Congress. And so I urge you to be able to go to Kaichur News and to be able to read that article. The title of that article is GTU has led the way on this landmark victory, which is important not only to Guyana, but the wider Caribbean. And so I thought it fit in this very brief introduction to allow you to be able to have something to be able to read. And therefore, I am not going to be able at this time, or I would not want to venture in to making any comment, because it is an excellent article that we should all read, digest, and be able to move with that as we go forward. So viewers, that is in brief, what is it we are going to talk about, that we are going to deal with in the introduction. I now want to turn very quickly my attention to the removal of vendors from the seawall. You know that a story would have been told that between Camp Street and Vicingen Road, a meeting was called with those vendors at 15 hours yesterday. And that meeting was called by the Sea Defense Board. And as they engaged, the board members engaged the vendors that were vending from between Camp Street and Vicingen Road. They were in no uncertain term told that by today they have to be removed, they have to remove from there completely. And what that means, that there should be nothing there, and that area should be kept clean. And so they were not too worried and troubled because they were making decisions. And they were operating in their minds what would be the next move. And so the Ministry of Public Works, not being satisfied that today was the date for them to remove, ventured in last night to be able to remove the vendors. But they stood their ground last night. And without any confrontation, in a very civilized manner, advise them that they have until today. That would have been last night they advised them that they have today. So this is the scenario. Between Camp Street and where the Pegasus Hotel is, there are a number of stalls. And those stalls, we are very well told, and we believe that all those stalls are owned and operated by PPP friends, families, and cronies. And so what is the difference between the people occupying the stalls between Camp Street and Vicingen Road and the people operating the stalls that are given the necessary permission to operate those stalls between Camp Street and the area of the Pegasus Hotel? If we look at this situation very seriously, that has to be total discrimination against those people who would have occupied stalls between Camp Street and Vicingen Road. And there would have been a very tight squeezing of those people, carrying them between Camp Street and the Pegasus Hotel. So if this is happening, tell me if you conclude that this is not an aspect of discrimination. And so that level of, and that aspect of discrimination would allow us to conclude further that we are taking out bread from poor people. We are making poor people poorer each day by the very act these people are carrying out. And so I said to you some time ago that Egel is not a person to be trusted. And he was the person I want to strongly believe caused those people to be able to go there last night and to want to remove those people between Camp Street and Vicingen Road. But I want you to understand, my viewers, that while they are doing that, please recall that on the Essequibo coast, between a village called Kapui and Three Friends, along that coastline there, that those people were given notices to remove by the same government, PPP, when they were in office the last time. And those same people were paid sums of money, I want to believe, and they never moved from where they were living or where they had their business. And they remained there, despite the fact I'm told that they received sums of money. But this is the thing in it. They are there, they remain there because when the notice was served, and after that, they then realized that about 95 or 98% of the people residing in that coastline there, from Kapui to Three Friends, were all supporters and members, friends, families, and favorites of the People's Progressive Party. I bring that to the viewers' attention because this is another form of discrimination that you are moving some and you are allowing some to remain. So what are we creating? And this is where, and here is where we have to understand that there is no concept like one Guyana. That is a farce and fake. And whoever believes in one Guyana, they believe so because they are getting their own kickbacks. And so, viewers, I want us to consider seriously. I want us to think seriously. Look at those persons who they are removing right now from between Camp Street and Vicingen Road, and make that comparison with who they are keeping between Camp Street and the area of the Pegasus Hotel, and make that comparison along the coastline of the Esguerro between Capuy and Three Friends, who they have there, who they might have paid them sometime, and they are now or still keeping them there. What is it that the Sea Defense Board is doing if they are removing some and they are keeping some? And this is the level of discrimination that we are talking about. And once we get this level of discrimination, we have to conclude and we have to believe that this government is targeting poor people, making them poorer and poorer each day as they come to live. And so we are in a difficult position, a situation in this country. And we need to look at what is going on. So if there is good and acceptable for the people on the Essequibo coast, then why is it not good for the occupants between Camp Street and Vicingen Road? In the last program, I told you of the powerful Egil is wielding his power on poor people of this country. From all indications, it would appear that he is instructed to discriminate persons who they consider to be supporters of the APNU AFC. And so views the situation with the vendors between Camp Street and Vicingen Road is cause for concern. And mind you, when that would have concluded, they are going to move to other areas, causing discomfort to persons who they conceive and believe are supporters of the APNU. I now turn my attention to a few education issues. And there might be three issues that I want to deal with tonight because they are very important issues. And I'm dealing with them because I want to set the record straight. There are times when people strongly believe that we don't look and we don't know the history of education in this country. But there is a letter today or a release today saying that secondary school students will soon receive textbooks from government. And guess who said that? Manik Chan, Priya Manik Chan. But maybe she was sleeping in 1976 when free education started in this country under the People's National Congress government. And at that time, while the People's National Congress was in government, and again I say Forbes Burnham so that the bumps can raise, Forbes Burnham introduced free education from nursery to university. And as a result of that, children of primary schools receive free exercise books and free textbooks. Students of secondary schools receive free textbooks and free exercise books. And if she was sleeping at that time, I asked her to now wake up and answer to the call and removing the misconception, because I am now removing it, because it is not the children of secondary schools are going to receive textbooks, because from 1976 they receive textbooks and exercise books. So this is a misconception, and we need to correct this situation, because I want her to know, to understand that if she was sleeping in 1976, that in 1976, the PNC government under Forbes Barnum introduced free education. And I repeat that the children of primary schools in this country receive free textbooks and free exercise books. The students of secondary schools receive free exercise books and free textbooks. So let me correct that and put the record straight, so that Priya Manik Chand, whenever she is making any disclosure, should trace the history of education in this country. So viewers, I thought it fit that it is important for me to make that very important correction in a misconception and misdeed that is peddled by Priya Manik Chand and the PPP government. The second thing I want to turn my attention to is the University of Guyana Faculty of Engineering and Technology. Some time ago, the Department of Petroleum and Geological Engineering, that department was established. And the programs following that program would have been formulated while the coalition was in government. Let me repeat that. The formulation of the programs, the course outline, and all the things that went with it would have been formulated then. And so we need to allow ourselves to give thanks and praise for Dr. Ivla Griffith and Dr. Vincent Adams. For they are the two persons who work with other colleagues at the university, their colleagues, not my colleagues, and other universities from Trinidad and elsewhere, to allow the formulation of the programs. And the programs last week I want to relieve, that particular department received full accreditation. And so that accreditation would now allow the students who are now engaged in the Department of Petroleum and Geological Engineering, not only them to be recognized, acknowledged, and accredited, but the university, the Faculty of Technology and Engineering, and the particular course or department, Petroleum and Geological Engineering. And so for that stage to have moved, somebody would have had to take the bull by its horn, so to speak. And that person would have been our now Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Dr. Paloma Mohammed. And to her, we owe her in this country a debt of gratitude and thanks, for which I now want to express, and for allowing herself to be able to look at the programs or the particular program that would have been formulated and now been accredited. And so we must give her praise and we must give her thanks. And so as a collective, a special thanks must be given to Dr. Griffith, Dr. Adams, and Dr. Mohammed, and by extension, the coalition government, and all the colleagues of the Faculty of Engineering and Technology here in Guyana, those in Trinidad and elsewhere, who would have worked on this program so that at this stage and this time, that Department of Petroleum and Geological Engineering could have been accredited. And so that is the work of the coalition government. But we were not there long enough to ensure that we were able to see the fruits of our labor. But we want to thank again Dr. Adams, Dr. Griffith, and Dr. Mohammed, the Vice Chancellor, for seeing the accreditation of this department and the programs therein. I continue in education, and this is a very, very sad situation where we have officers, and I'm repeating these things over and over, bringing to the viewers' attention every time I come on this program, pieces of correspondence from the Ministry of Education, and in this case, memorandum, wrongly constructed. So there is this memorandum from the Chief Schools Inspector, very important office. And he was writing, or he wrote to the regional education officers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, and the principal education, Georgetown. Well, he is good and correct in that. Notification of upcoming school inspection, 3rd of May, 2024. But here is it. He ended like all his officers would have done. Yours sincerely, Sadiq Ismail, Chief Schools Inspector. My God, if the Chief Schools Inspector is writing a memo that is terribly wrong, where are we going in education? Where are we going when these officers are signing big as Chief Schools Inspector and don't know how to construct properly a simple memo that our grade 6 children can do in a perfect way? And this is not all. He would have sent out the schedule for these visits. And he had a region, the nursery, primary, secondary school. And my God, this gentleman who named, what is his name? Sadiq Ismail, cannot conceptualize and know or differentiate or differentiate between nursery, primary, and secondary schools. And the evidence is here in front of me. For example, Region 3, he said on the secondary, Greenwich Park Primary. Greenwich Park Primary is a discrete primary school, and he has it listed on the secondary. And then further to that, he had a Fellowship Practical Instruction Center listed on the secondary. In Region 2, he has the following schools. I don't want to bore you too much with this here, but I want you to let him know that he cannot conceptualize nursery, primary, and secondary school. But I'm going to turn to a few places where he has nursery schools. And so he said, Mainstay Lake Primary, Kapui Primary, Hampton Court Primary, Charity Primary, Jackalope Primary. All these are discrete primary schools, but yet he would have listed them on the secondary schools to be visited by the inspectorate unit. And so when he goes to other regions, like Region 1, Mabaruma Primary, discrete. Husururu Primary, discrete. Right? Rosignol Primary, discrete. West Ramval Primary, discrete. And then Region 5. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 nursery schools listed here on the secondary. My God, where are we going with education with these persons that we have managing the education system. No, don't think you can't too much worry with them because the minister does not understand that free education from nursery to university was introduced in 1976, and children were receiving in primary schools the textbooks and exercise book, and in the secondary schools the students were receiving textbooks and exercise books. And so I go to the memo number 3. And this memo is from the chief education officer, this gentleman we call Saddam Hussein. And he's writing to district education officers, cadet officers, and seconded officers through regional education officers and principal education officer. Nowhere, principal. Let me say to you that this is irregular in the Ministry of Education. If district education officers, cadet officers, and seconded officers are to be written to, they have to be written to by the respective regional education officers. And so he has no right or duty to address these officers through the regional education officer. This is not his function and duty. And this is a memo he's sending out here. Classroom observation by officers, dated 14th. And this is the bad part of it. That this gentleman is not learning, despite the fact these things are brought to his attention week after week on this program and other programs. He concluded, "Your respectfully, Saddam Hussein." He signs and print his name, Chief Education Officer. This should have already been stated. This is a poorly constructed memo for the education system. And it brings to bear, where are we going with education? Ladies and gentlemen, viewers, I now turn my attention very quickly to what is happening at the Guyana Rice Development Board. It is alleged that there is massive financial corruption at GRDP, and persons are trying to cover up. Staff members in some regions would have indicated that to date they were not paid salaries and other allowances for the month of April. Payment of salaries and allowances are normally paid on or before the 20th of each month. Today is the 24th. Recall that in 2014, there was an alleged financial corruption at GRDB. There was an absence of such corrupt practices during 2015 and 2020. This act is not or may I say that this act would have once more raised its head since the PPP came into office. And this is not all. Farmers across this country have complained bitterly of the lateness and absence of field staff of GRDB. They had also complained of the non-performance of these staff members. But it would have been realized and concluded that 90% of the employees of GRDB are all friends, the families, and cronies of the PPP. So if this is so, then what can you expect? And since there is this alleged fraud and massive financial corruption at GRDB, it might be a good time to call out the Auditor General and his officers who were so active and engaging between the period 2015 and 2020. And so if this information is passed to persons around, they should be in a position to be able to make that evaluation and assessment at this time. Workers and employees of GRDB across this country, they have their families to feed, but they are in a tight position because they did not receive any salaries, so to speak, for this month. And it is a telling situation on them. Viewers, you would have recognized that Irfan Ali visited Brooklyn sometime late last week. Most of his visits, while important, were irregular and non-compliant by members of the Brooklyn community. So there are a number of issues, three rather, and concerns. So the first one is that Irfan Ali and his team visited Kings County Hospital, Brooklyn. A number of things happened. One, no permission was sought and obtained or granted. Two, all health protocols, rules, conventions were broken by Irfan Ali and his team. He and members of the team visited sections of the hospital that were restricted. Those sections were restricted and required the necessary health and outfit, and they did not have any of those. It is told that an investigation is on its way as regards his visit, his unauthorized visit, his interaction with the persons there, staff and patients. And therefore, I want to say that based on what is happening, he might have been or would be the cause for that investigation, and he might be the cause for some people to be investigated, and the results might be in dire need for those persons. While he was there also, he visited a restaurant. He and members of the team visited all the health and food. They violated rather all the health and food safety codes of the New York City Health Department. So that is number one. They all violated the health and food safety codes. The second thing the team did, that the dress code for cooks are specified, and not he nor the members of the team were not properly attired for that section of the restaurant they went. The third thing is that the cooks all must have food handlers and sanitation certificate before they go into that section. He nor none of his members of his team had any food handlers and sanitation certificate. So that is the third rule that they would have broken. The fourth rule would have been the storage of food and surface area for the preparation now becomes questionable. The possibility is that when officials of the New York City Health Department visit this restaurant, the owners will be cited for a number of violations. The safety of the customers of food from the restaurant is severely threatened, if not compromised. These are the situations that would now face the owners or owner of this particular restaurant. These are the situations that might cause some harm or some level of action to be taken for non-compliant of these situations. Who is the cause? You know the answer. And the third one is he visited a barber's shop. The barber who allowed Ali to put his hand on the customer's head has also breached the law. One has to be licensed by the state or city of New York to practice barbering. These are all evidence of unlawful behavior, and the product. These unlawful acts and behavior must be condemned by the entire Brooklyn community and all law-abiding citizens of Guyana. So viewers, I've pointed out three things on that visit. One, the visit to the restaurant, the barbershop, and the third one would have been the Kings County Hospital, where he just barged in without the necessary permission and approval, and he broke all the rules, conventions, and regulations as it relates to the operations of those, the restaurant, the hospital, and the barbershop. So now these people here are left to wonder what would happen after these investigations are held. So I understand that there is an investigation, and that investigation would lead to somewhere. Those are not investigations that is happening like in Guyana. Those are in-depth investigations. And so, viewers, we now turn our attention to victory for teachers. On Friday the 18th, or rather the 19th of April, the court ruled that teachers' strike was legal. Let me repeat. The court ruled that the teachers' strike was legal. The second thing, in summary, the court ruled that teachers must be paid during the period of their involvement in the strike action. Must be paid during the involvement in the strike action. That the Ministry of Education must continue to deduct union dues from all teachers and to so reimburse that sum of money to the Guyana Teachers Union on a monthly basis. May I at this time congratulate the executive of the Guyana Teachers Union and all teachers who were involved in this long struggle. And we know that all our teachers were involved because they were in the struggle and they were rewarded by the court. The stated appeal by the Attorney General is one in which an employer is going against the employees. And here is where the Ministry of Education, Government of Guyana, is going against the teachers of this country. Let me repeat that. The Ministry of Education, and by extension, the Government of Guyana, based on the appeal I'm talking about, of the decision, is going against the teachers of this country. And so, teachers, I urge you to rethink your position as this particular situation would have presented itself, because you are the ones that are going to either make it or break it in this country. And you had full representation on this here. Now, the court admonished the chief education officer of this country, Saddam Hussein, and the chief labor officer, I don't know his name and I don't care to know, because both of them, as admonished by the court, failed the entire process between the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education. That is to say, in the bilateral process which would have been between the ministry and the Guyana Teachers Union. The next process would have been conciliation, which would have been a process by the chief labor officer. A gentleman that is tremendously out of order and a total failure as it relates to issues in relation to trade unionism in Guyana. And so it is good, it would be very good if both Saddam Hussein and the chief labor officer can consider by tonight and make that decision tomorrow to quickly resign from their positions. Both the Ministry of Education and Labor would at least be in 2% more activated. And not only blame them, it might be a good thing if both Ministers of Education and Labor can resign from their post immediately, because they have not been any good to our teachers of this country. And our teachers of this country would have been responsible for where they are at this time in their life. And teachers brought them and take them there where they are at this time. Well, it might be, I know it might be for the Minister of Education. I don't know if the Minister of Labor went to any school or if ever he was educated anywhere. But that is not to bring him down, but to say what I think. So two things came out of the ruling of the court. And that is that we have to think seriously of Article 147 of the Constitution, and we have to make reference to, at all times, the ILO Convention, because those are the two guiding factors as we move from stage to stage. Not only the Guyana Teachers Union, but all the other unions in this country. And they must take a page out of the Guyana Teachers Union, mean the other unions of this country, and do what they have to do to ensure that all our public officers, all our teachers and public servants receive adequate remuneration based on what Guyana is now receiving from the sale of oil and gas. They boast about an oil-rich country, but they don't tell people that they are making them poorer, they are making public servants poorer, they are making teachers poorer, they are making the poor poorer, and that is their main aim and objective. while 1% of them are getting richer and richer each and every day as things unfold. I want to deal now with the discrimination of grant. Very quickly, you were told and you saw in the media recently that there was this gentleman who was a teacher of the Essequibo Islands Secondary School. And he said, in summary, that there was this hot dog sale and people were refusing to buy this hot dog because it was a PPP organized fundraising activity. And he called for the list to say, let me see the list. And when I go through that list and persons who would not have purchased tickets for the hot dog, he would ensure that they do not receive cash grants. A head teacher of a secondary school, the only secondary school on the island of Wikenham. And I say this to you now as I would have been saying all the time. Any money that is spent in this country from the public treasury, it is not the PPP money. It is not the government of Guyana money. It is money that belongs to the people, and it is money that belongs to the state. And the people of this country must decide and determine how each cent and each dollar is distributed and spent. And you would recall that when the coalition was in government, a committee would have been named to manage the resources and funds of the oil and gas industry. But when the PPP came in government, they only listed a few persons to be members of that committee. And why they did that? Because they can control the members of that committee, because the committee is small, and the membership, because it is small, can be easily compromised. And this is not easily compromised alone. It has been compromised because we are facing the serious situation, financial situation in this country. And so we need to take a serious look at that because people are being discriminated against as it relates to the cash grants. I want to very quickly look at a few regional matters. It is alleged that there is no regional evaluation committee, and that projects that are awarded, it is alleged again, that the tender board would select persons, and there's a special place somewhere that these awards are made, not in an official government office. And before tenders are out there, award for contracts, people are already awarded these contracts. Again, it is alleged. And so here is where I'm calling out the Auditor General to allow his officers, while he encouraged them to be very active, allegedly, during the period 2015 to 2020, that they must see all these things. They must ask for evaluation committee meeting reports. They must ask for tender board minutes, because they were, in the time 2015-2020, They were on the backs of those people who were officiating on behalf of the coalition government. But we are putting things to them, and as I said in some one of these programs, I'm going to be the one that would be probing, because I would go about and find out, not myself alone, but other persons. And we are going to call them out. We are going to call them out. Right now in this region, there are a few persons who are re-employed, retired persons in very senior position, and those persons are a threat. If not, they have been a threat, and they are now demoralizing our young people from getting that promotion. One is the PPO, and she's sleeping on the work. One is the EPMA, and she's sleeping on the work. Because they are old, and old people would want time to rest. And they should go home and rest. And don't hold up the places where our young people who are far more qualified than they are, and sitting in those seats, hotting them up, heating them up. And our young people are very eager and anxious to go and sit there and to perform at the maximum. This is also an area of concern for the Auditor General, the staff, so to speak, in this region. And since it is alleged that these persons are occupying these positions, having been retired, and not allowing our young people to go and to grow, there is need for us to be able to look at that. And so, viewers, as I conclude this program, because we started late, and since we started late, I don't want to go into the too long, because I've shortened what I had to say, and I'm going to conclude by saying that the Public Accounts Committee, since the last time they met 2-3 weeks ago, they did not meet. And they continue not to meet, because every time they don't meet, and that further delay is there, it is better for them, because their time, meaning the PPP time, is coming to an end. And they don't want to face the fire as is it for them to be accounting to the Public Accounts Committee. So the way they would have allowed themselves in Parliament rather than National Assembly to do a different format for the quorum, once they are absent, there is no meeting. And they are deliberately doing this because they do not want their time to come, so that auditing can take, not that the auditing rather, but to answer the questions at the Public Accounts Committee meeting. And so I want to close with one last thing, because not only is the regions and the ministries that are making poor people poorer, it is also agencies of the government. And I here refer to the Environmental Protection Agency. It is alleged that sometime this week there was a seminar somewhere in this region. Refreshments would have been ordered from a vendor, a supplier, a poor couple who now trying to make ends meet. And so they did supply on that day. They did supply on that day torte juices and torte pin rolls. They took those two items there. They collected the 30 pinwheels. They allowed the 30 Jews to remain in the guard hut. And then when it was night, they called the suppliers to say that the Jews, the 30 tins of juice, are at the guard hut. They must go and collect. They did go and collect it. But they were told that the EPA officers, personnel, what have you, collected the 30 pin rolls. They utilized it, and that they would not get any pay for it because another supplier supplied refreshment on that day. This is robbery under arms. This is thieving. This is taken from a poor couple that is trying to make ends meet. And these are little situations that we have to correct. So viewers, since we would have started late because of some technical difficulties, I thought it best that I should be able to summarize some of the things that I said, and that the next time around, I would be speaking to the issues that I did not touch tonight. I want to thank you very much for waiting on this period, for the start of this program, and for waiting until the end of this program. Please continue to support or to watch every Wednesday at 6:30, Advancing the Cause. Next week, my friend, sister, and comrade, Honorable Coretta McDonald, AAMP, and General Secretary of the GTU, would take this program next week. So viewers, have a very good and blessed night. And may God bless you now and always. Thank you very much.